The discovery. The void between stars was quiet, undisturbed for centuries except for the occasional passing of interstellar dust. Here, in a forgotten corner of the Cygnus arm, drifted something that should not exist. Three figures in specialized envirosuits maneuvered carefully through the debris field. Their movements were practiced, efficient, as they navigated between twisted fragments of metal and frozen gases that sparkled like diamonds in their suit lights. "Readings are getting stronger," Professor Zixel said, adjusting the scanner strapped to his forearm. The Varian's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he studied the data scrolling across his visor. "Whatever it is, it's large. Very large." Professor Laurel Tavanide didn't respond immediately. The Ashrathi archaeologist was focused on her own instruments, her skin shifting from its natural blue to a paler shade that indicated intense concentration. After 20 years searching for evidence to support her theories, she refused to get excited prematurely. "The radiation signature matches pre-collapse human technology," she finally said. "But that's impossible. This region was thoroughly swept during the Great Purge." The third member of their team, Kavosh, a hulking Drell whose species served as muscle throughout the Galactic Confederacy, grunted. "Humans have been extinct for 6 centuries. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows what the historical archives tell them," Lyrell countered, her tone sharp. "Archives can be incomplete or altered." They continued forward, propelling themselves with short bursts from their maneuvering thrusters. The debris field grew denser, and then suddenly parted to reveal their destination. And there it was. "By the ancestral light," Zixel whispered, all 4 eyes widening. Before them floated a massive vessel, at least 2 kilometers in length. Its dark hull seemed to absorb the light from their equipment rather than reflect it. Despite centuries adrift in space, it appeared largely intact, only minor damage visible along its port side. The design was unlike anything in Confederate records, sleek yet intimidating, with a distinctive arrowhead shape and what appeared to be massive weapon emplacements along its spine. "Impossible," Kavosh muttered. "Our most advanced dreadnoughts are barely half this size." Lyrell's instruments were going wild, detecting energy patterns that shouldn't exist on a derelict ship. "This is it," she said, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. "A human warship from the collapse era. The HSS Dauntless, if I'm reading these markings correctly." "How could it have survived?" Zixel asked, scanning the hull. "The histories say the progenitors destroyed all human vessels during the final battle." "History is written by the victors," Lyrell said quietly. "Move closer. Look for an entry point." They approached cautiously, their suit lights revealing intricate patterns etched into the hull, not just decorative, but language. Lyrell captured images with her equipment, comparing them to the limited human language samples in her database. After following the hull for nearly an hour, they discovered what appeared to be an airlock. The massive door was sealed tight, but nearby was a smaller access panel. "This could be a maintenance entry," Lyrell suggested, examining the panel closely. "The question is whether we can activate it after all this time." Kavosh remained a few meters back, his posture tense. "Professor, may I remind you that Confederate protocols for encountering ancient technology clearly state—" "I'm well aware of protocols," Lyrell interrupted. "But this discovery could rewrite everything we know about human civilization and their technology. The Confederate Council's understanding of humans is based on fragmented records and propaganda." Making a decision, Lyrell reached out and placed her hand on the access panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft blue light began to glow beneath her palm. The light spread, running along previously invisible lines in the hull, creating a network of illumination that extended in all directions. The 3 researchers backed away in shock as systems activated. Lights began to appear along the entire visible length of the ship. Sections of the hull that had appeared damaged suddenly seemed to repair themselves, and a low hum of energy built around them. "What did you do?" Zixel gasped, his skin turning a pale yellow in alarm. "I didn't," Lyrell began, but was cut off by a sudden mechanical sound. The access panel slid open, revealing a dark passage into the ship's interior. At the same moment, their communication devices crackled with static, then went silent. The ancient human warship was awake. Lyrel hesitated at the threshold of the open access panel. The darkness beyond seemed to invite and warn at the same time. After exchanging glances with her team, she activated her suit's enhanced light source and moved forward. "Stay close," she instructed Zixel and Kavosh. "Record everything." The passage they entered was narrow, clearly designed for maintenance rather than regular use. The alien researchers had to move in single file, their equipment occasionally scraping against the walls. After several meters, the passage widened into what appeared to be an airlock chamber. "The architecture is remarkable," Zixel whispered, examining the seamless construction. "No visible welds or joins." Kavosh remained silent, but his scanner swept continuously across their surroundings. The readings on his device fluctuated wildly, numbers and symbols changing faster than he could interpret them. The inner door of the airlock was already open, as if expecting them. Beyond it lay a corridor bathed in dim blue emergency lighting that had activated with the ship's awakening. Their instruments showed the air inside was stale but breathable. "We should keep our equipment on," Lyrel said, though the temptation to remove her cumbersome envirosuit was strong. "We don't know if the atmosphere will remain stable." They moved deeper into the vessel, each step taking them further from the known and into legend. The corridor branched in multiple directions, and Lyrel chose the path that seemed to lead toward the center of the ship. "Look at this," Zixel said, stopping at a section of wall covered in symbols. "These match patterns from the theoretical human language models in our archives." Lyrel examined them closely. "Can you make out any meaning?" "Only fragments. This symbol group might indicate command or control, and this one appears to reference crew quarters." As they continued, the ship seemed to respond to their presence. Lights brightened slightly along their path, and occasionally doors slid open before they reached them. The effect was unsettling, as if the vessel was guiding them somewhere specific. "Professor," Kavosh said suddenly, his voice tense, "my scanner is detecting multiple power surges throughout the ship. Systems are activating in sequence." Before Lyrel could respond, they entered a vast chamber that took their breath away. The room was circular, with a ceiling that rose at least 20 meters above them. Workstations ringed the perimeter, and at the center was a raised platform with what could only be a command chair. "A bridge," Lyrel whispered in awe. "The command center of a human warship." As they stepped fully into the room, the lighting increased dramatically. Displays and control panels flickered to life around them, holographic projections materializing in the air. The ship was awakening more with each passing moment. Zixel approached one of the workstations, his natural scientific curiosity overcoming caution. The controls were unlike anything in Confederate technology, both more primitive and more advanced in unexpected ways. "These systems appear to be weapons control," he said, studying the displays. "The destructive capability suggested by these readings is concerning." Kavosh had moved to another section of the bridge. "Professor, you should see this." Lyrel joined him at what appeared to be a life support station. The display showed hundreds of small chambers throughout the ship, most marked with red symbols, but 12 were pulsing with green light. "Are those?" Lyrel began. "Stasis pods," Kavosh confirmed, "with viable life signs." The implications struck them all at once. This wasn't just an ancient relic. It potentially contained living humans. "We need to report this immediately," Zixel said, backing away from the controls. "The Confederate Council will want to assemble a proper research team." "Agreed," Lyrel said, though part of her wanted to continue exploring. "Let's return to our ship and send a message." As they turned to leave, Zixel accidentally brushed against a control panel. A sharp tone sounded, and a new holographic display appeared in the center of the bridge. Strange symbols flashed rapidly, then converted to a language they recognized from Confederate archives. "Security Purotoctol activated. Detecting unknown entity. Is awaiting command. What did you do? Kavosh hissed at Zixel. Nothing intentional, he replied, backing away from the console. I barely touched it. The lights in the bridge shifted from blue to a pulsing amber. More text appeared on the holographic display. No command. OVERIDDETCTED. Activating emergency protocol. A new voice filled the chamber, deep and artificial, but somehow human-like. Unidentified entities on command deck. State your identity and purpose immediately. The three aliens froze, looking around for the source of the voice. We are researchers from the Galactic Confederacy, Lyrell said cautiously. We discovered this vessel and entered to investigate. A pause followed, as if the ship was processing this information. Galactic Confederacy not recognized in database. Time since last system update. 612 standard years. Initiating emergency protocols. Heavy metallic sounds echoed throughout the ship. Something was moving or awakening. We should leave now, Kavosh urged, already backing toward the exit. Before they could reach the door, it sealed shut with a decisive thud. Similar sounds echoed throughout the ship as all exits closed and locked. I am ARIA, Adaptive Response Intelligence of the human spaceship Dauntless, the voice announced. You are now detained pending evaluation by command personnel. At that moment, the display showing the stasis pods changed. One of the green indicators began flashing rapidly. Emergency revival protocol initiated for command officer. Estimated time to consciousness, 15 minutes. Lyrell, Zixel, and Kavosh looked at each other in growing alarm. They had come seeking knowledge of an extinct civilization. Instead, they had awakened a warship with living crew members, and they were now its prisoners. Awakening. The three alien researchers huddled near the center of the bridge, discussing their options in hushed tones. The ship's systems continued activating around them, displays flickering with information too fast for them to comprehend. Can we override the security protocols? Kavosh asked, examining the nearest console. Zixel shook his head. This technology is both ancient and advanced. I wouldn't know where to begin. Lyrell remained calmer than her companions. We should prepare to make peaceful contact. This is an unprecedented opportunity to speak with actual humans. A mechanical sound drew their attention to the far side of the bridge. A section of wall slid open, revealing a narrow corridor that hadn't been visible before. The amber alert lighting pulsed along this new path. Stasis revival complete, announced the ship's eye. Commander Kane approaching command center. The aliens tensed as footsteps echoed from the corridor. A tall figure emerged, moving with the stiffness of someone recently awakened. The human wore a dark uniform with insignia they didn't recognize. Despite being thinner than historical records suggested, the human stood taller than any of them. Commander Kane stopped abruptly upon seeing the aliens, her hand immediately moving to a weapon holster at her side. "ARIA, report," she commanded, eyes never leaving the strangers. 3 unknown entities discovered on bridge. Ship systems activated following 612 years in emergency stasis. Entities claim affiliation with Galactic Confederacy, not present in our records. Kane's expression revealed nothing as she assessed the situation. Her face showed age lines, and short silver hair contrasted with her dark skin, but her eyes remained sharp and alert. "You're not progenitors," she finally said, her voice rough from disuse. "What species?" Lyrell stepped forward cautiously. "I am Lyrell Tavanni, archaeologist from Ashrath Prime. These are my colleagues, Zixel and Kavosh. We discovered your vessel while exploring this region of space." Kane's posture relaxed slightly, though her hand remained near her weapon. "Archaeologist, you thought this was a dead ship. All records indicate that humans became extinct approximately 6 centuries ago," Zixel explained. "Your civilization is studied as an ancient one." A brief flash of emotion crossed Kane's face. pain quickly masked. "Extinct," she whispered, then louder. "AI, what's the ship's status?" The AI responded immediately. "All critical systems functional. 11 crew members remain in stasis. Quantum displacement drive damaged but stable. Weapons at 78% capacity." Kane nodded, then addressed the aliens again. "I am Commander Elena Kane of the HSS Dauntless, 3rd Fleet of Earth's Defense Force." She paused, processing their earlier statement. "You said humans are considered extinct." Lyrell nodded. "The Great Collapse is well documented. After the war with entities known as the progenitors, human worlds fell one by one. Historical records indicate no survivors." Kane moved to the command chair and activated a control panel. "Survivors existed. We were on a mission to ensure that." She studied the displays, her expression grim. "AI, begin revival procedure for Captain Mercer and Lieutenant Commander Chen." "Acknowledge. Revival sequence initiated." The commander turned back to the aliens. "You mentioned a galactic confederacy. When did this form?" "Approximately 50 years after the fall of human civilization," Lyrell explained. "It united the surviving spacefaring species under common governance." Kane's eyes narrowed. "Which species leads this confederacy?" The researchers exchanged glances. "The Valkyrie Council holds the central positions," Kavosh answered. "They were among the first to achieve diplomatic unity after the collapse." Kane's face hardened. "AI, display historical image of progenitor command species." A hologram appeared in the center of the bridge, a tall, elegant humanoid with iridescent skin and elongated features. The image rotated slowly. Zixel gasped. That's a Valkyrie elder." "That," Kane said coldly, "is what we called a progenitor prime. Their battle strategy was to consume worlds while leaving governing species alive as puppets." She looked at each alien in turn. "Your confederacy is being led by the very enemy we fought." The revelation hit the researchers like a physical blow. Lyrell struggled to process the implications. "But our histories say the progenitors were defeated." "Not defeated," Kane corrected. "We developed a weapon that could stop them. That's what this ship carries. But we were betrayed and forced to activate our experimental quantum displacement drive during the final battle. It seems we've been trapped in a temporal bubble for 6 centuries while the progenitors rewrote history." New footsteps approached from the corridor. 2 more humans entered the bridge, both looking disoriented but alert. One carried what was clearly a weapon. "Commander," the older man acknowledged, then froze upon seeing the aliens. "What's the situation?" "Captain, these are researchers from what's now called the Galactic Confederacy. They've awakened our ship, and they've just learned that their civilization is being led by the progenitors under a new name." Captain Mercer, a weathered man with dark skin and a closely trimmed beard, processed this information quickly. "AI, continue awakening the crew. Prioritize weapons and engineering teams." He turned to the aliens. "You have a choice to make. You've awakened the last human warship and discovered the truth about your confederacy. What will you do with this knowledge?" The question hung in the air as the ship's systems continued to come fully online around them. An uneasy silence filled the bridge as the 3 aliens considered Captain Mercer's question. The newly awakened human crew members took positions around the command center, watching the aliens with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Lieutenant Commander Chen, a woman with sharp features and calculating eyes, stood at Mercer's right hand. The younger officer who had entered with them positioned himself near the weapons console, his posture tense and ready. "If what you're saying is true," Lyrell finally spoke, "then everything our civilization believes about its history is false." Zixel stepped forward, his scientific mind already working through the implications. "We need evidence. Our word alone won't convince anyone in the Confederacy." Mercer nodded, understanding their position. "AI, access historical archives. Display footage from the Battle of Proxima." The holographic display in the center of the bridge flickered, then showed a devastating scene. A beautiful blue-green planet similar to Earth in records, surrounded by massive ships. Energy weapons fired from the larger vessels, carving deep wounds into the planet's surface. The footage zoomed closer, showing creatures matching the progenitor image, systematically extracting resources and population centers. The progenitors didn't just conquer, Mercer explained, his voice flat. They consumed, stripped planets of resources, harvested useful population groups, and left worlds barren. The footage showed human ships engaging the massive progenitor vessels, fighting with remarkable coordination, but clearly outmatched. Then it revealed something troubling. Smaller ships with markings matching current Confederate designs fighting alongside the progenitors. The Valkyrie weren't just leaders, Commander Kane said bitterly. They were coordinators, identifying which civilizations to harvest and which to preserve as allies. Kavosh had moved to one of the science stations, examining the ship's database. This matches fragments of restricted historical data I once accessed during my security training. Information the Council claims is dangerous propaganda. Mercer turned to a new console and activated it. A three-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared with thousands of stars highlighted in different colors. These were human colony worlds, he said, indicating green markers. 273 planets and stations. The green markers began changing to red, one by one. This was the progress of the progenitor campaign. Eventually, only a handful of green points remained, primarily in a region far from the heart of what was now Confederate space. Operation Safeguard was our final mission, Mercer continued. The Dauntless carried a weapon designed to disrupt the progenitors' collective consciousness. We also transported genetic material and cultural archives to these remaining colonies, hoping to preserve humanity even if Earth fell. The young officer spoke for the first time, his voice deep and grave. We were ambushed before reaching the rendezvous point. Captain made the call to activate the quantum displacement drive as a last resort. Guess it worked too well. Lyrell had been examining another console, her expertise in xenorchaeology, proving useful in deciphering the human technology. According to these readings, you weren't completely phased out. You existed partially in normal space, but time passed differently. What felt like moments to you was centuries for the rest of the galaxy. Mercer moved closer to the star map. These remaining colonies, could they still exist? Kane's expression showed a hint of hope for the first time. That's what we need to find out. Chen activated another console. Ship sensors are coming fully online. We should be able to scan nearby systems for communications matching human encryption patterns. Captain, I interrupted. I am detecting approaching vessels. 3 ships matching Confederate patrol cruiser configurations. They appear to be responding to an automated distress signal. All eyes turned to the aliens. Kavosh looked down at his equipment. Our expedition vessel has automated emergency protocols. When communications were cut, it must have triggered a distress beacon. The young officer moved quickly to the tactical station. Weapons are operational, but power reserves are at 53%. We can't take on 3 cruisers in our current state. Mercer made a quick decision. We need time to understand the current situation and locate any surviving human outposts. He turned to the alien researchers. I'm offering you a choice. Stay with us and help us navigate this new galaxy, or return to your Confederate ships. Lyrell looked at her companions, then back at Mercer. If what you've shown us is true, the Confederacy, our entire civilization, is built on deception. We've dedicated our lives to uncovering truth. Zixel nodded. I cannot return to spread lies, knowing what I now know. Kavosh hesitated longer, his security training warring with his conscience. Finally, he said, the Confederacy will send more ships when these don't return. They must suspect something about this region already. Then we need to move quickly, Mercer decided. RIA, begin revival sequence for the remaining crew. Commander, prepare the ship for emergency jump, once we have proper coordinates. Lieutenant, secure our new allies' quarters. The ancient warship hummed with increasing power as more systems came online. The last hope of humanity was awake, and the galaxy would soon feel its presence again. Part 3. Resurgence. The bridge of the Dauntless buzzed with activity as the remaining human crew members were revived and brought up to speed. Lieutenant Park, the ship's science officer, worked alongside Zixel to analyze current Confederate technology based on the patrol ships now holding position just outside sensor range. Engineer Rodriguez and medical officer Dr. Weber examined the ship's systems and prepared the remaining stasis pods for possible use. Captain Mercer stood at the central command station, studying sensor data with intense concentration. "They haven't attempted to approach yet. They're being cautious," Kevosh explained. "Standard Confederate protocol requires specialized equipment for engaging unknown vessels with historical signatures. They'll be waiting for a research vessel with proper containment capabilities." Commander Kane approached with a data tablet. "Captain, we've completed our initial assessment. The quantum displacement drive can be reactivated, but we'll only get one jump before it requires extensive repairs." Mercer nodded. "Make sure it's ready. We'll need it soon." He turned to Lyrell. "Tell me about the Confederacy's military capabilities." Before Lyrell could answer, Aria's voice interrupted. "Captain, a transmission is being directed toward us on all standard frequencies." "Let's hear it," Mercer ordered. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in the common language of the Confederacy, but automatically translated by the ship's systems. "Unidentified vessel. This is Admiral Sereth of the Confederate Security Division. Our sensors detect unusual energy signatures in this sector. You are in violation of Restricted Zone Protocol 7. Power down all systems immediately and prepare to be boarded." Mercer looked at Lyrell, who shook her head slightly. "Admiral Sereth is not part of the Science Council. He's military intelligence, specializing in artifacts and ancient technology. They're suspicious already. They know exactly what we are." The young tactical officer, Lieutenant Reeves, commented from the weapons station. Mercer considered their options. "We need more time. Aria, can you jam their scanning frequencies?" "Affirmative, Captain. However, this will confirm our technological capabilities and likely escalate their response." "Do it anyway. Then scan for any sign of human outposts." While ARIA handled the countermeasures, Lieutenant Park reported from the science station. "Captain, we've modified the sensors to detect specific human communication patterns and technology signatures. Beginning long-range scan now." The main display showed a wave of energy emanating from the ship, spreading outward through surrounding star systems. Everyone watched anxiously as the scan progressed. After several tense minutes, a single point of light began pulsing on the far edge of the display. "We have a hit," Park announced, her voice tight with emotion. "System designation Epsilon Eridani, approximately 22 light-years from our position. The signature is faint, but matches human quantum encryption protocols." A collective breath of relief passed through the human crew. Mercer allowed himself a brief smile before returning to tactical considerations. "Set jump coordinates for Epsilon Eridani. Maximum safe distance to avoid detection upon arrival." Outside their sensor range, the Confederate ships began to move, taking up positions that effectively surrounded the area. "Captain," Aria announced, "I'm detecting energy signatures consistent with weapons charging on Confederate vessels." "They're not waiting," Kane said grimly. At that moment, a new transmission came through, this time with video. The image showed a tall Valkyrie in an elaborate uniform, his iridescent skin unmistakable. "This is Admiral Sereth to unidentified vessel. Our sensors detect an ancient human warship at your location. This vessel is the property of the Confederacy under Historical Preservation Statute 42. Power down all systems immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction." Mercer cut the transmission. The progenitor leadership must have passed down knowledge about human warships. They'd been waiting for something like this to appear. He turned to his crew. "Battle stations. Prepare for emergency quantum jump." The Confederate ships advanced slowly but with clear purpose, their weapons remaining charged. Lyrell worked frantically at her console. "Captain, I've analyzed their approach pattern. They're setting up for a capture, not destruction. They want this ship intact." "Of course they do," Mercer said. "The weapon we carry could still threaten them, even after all this time." Engineer Rodriguez called from the engine room. "Quantum displacement drive is ready, Captain, but I can't guarantee precision targeting. The damage to the spatial coils means we could end up anywhere within 2 light-years of our intended coordinates." "That's a risk we'll have to take," Mercer decided. "Execute jump now." The massive warship began to shimmer as the quantum displacement drive engaged. Space distorted around them, as reality itself seemed to bend. The Confederate ships launched grappling weapons, but they passed through the increasingly transparent hull of the Dauntless. Just before they fully shifted, Admiral Sereth sent one final message. "You cannot escape. The knowledge you carry will destroy everything. We will find you." Then the ancient human warship vanished, leaving the Confederate fleet firing uselessly into empty space. The transition through quantum space twisted reality around the Dauntless's crew. Human and alien alike felt their bodies stretch and compress as the ancient warship tore its way through the fabric of space-time. Lights flickered throughout the vessel, and several systems sparked with power surges. When the distortion finally settled, the main view screen showed a distant yellow star surrounded by several planets. "Quantum jump complete," Araya announced. "Current location, Epsilon Eridani system, outer asteroid belt. Distance from central star, approximately 10 astronomical units." Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system, strained but professional. "Captain, the drive is completely offline. Power conduits throughout the ship are damaged. We're running on emergency systems only." Mercer gripped the command chair as the ship stabilized. "Casualties?" Kane checked the internal sensors. "Minor injuries reported on decks 3 and 5. Dr. Weber is responding." "Sensors," Mercer demanded, turning to Park. "Signal originating from the 4th planet," the science officer reported. "It's habitable, atmosphere, gravity, and temperature within Earth standard parameters." The view screen zoomed in on a blue-green world with a single small moon. Initial scans showed signs of civilization, cities, energy signatures, and orbital structures. "Are they aware of our arrival?" Mercer asked. "Uncertain," Park replied, "but I'm detecting increased communication activity on the surface. They likely observed our quantum jump energy signature." Lyrell moved to join Park at the science station. "The orbital structures are defense platforms," she said, reading the scan data. "More advanced than Confederate technology, but recognizably human in design." Mercer nodded, unsurprised. 600 years of isolated development. They've been preparing. "Captain," ARIA interrupted, "incoming transmission from the planet's surface. Signal uses old Earth military protocols with modified encryption." "Put it through," Mercer ordered, straightening his uniform. The view screen changed to show a woman in her 50s with white hair and bronze skin. She wore a uniform unlike Mercer's, but with clear military styling. Her eyes widened slightly at the sight of Mercer and his crew. "This is General Diana Nakamura of the United Colonies Defense Force. Identify yourself and state your intentions." Mercer stepped forward. "Captain James Mercer of the HSS Dauntless, Earth Defense Fleet. We've been in quantum stasis for the past 612 years and have only recently awakened." Disbelief crossed General Nakamura's face, followed by cautious hope. "The Dauntless was lost during the last battle for Earth. It's part of our historical records. We were on a mission to deliver critical technology and materials to the outer colonies," Mercer explained. "We were forced to activate our experimental quantum displacement drive during an ambush. It appears time passed differently for us." The general studied Mercer and his crew intently. Her gaze shifted to the alien researchers standing behind them. "And who are your guests?" "Researchers from what's now called the Galactic Confederacy. They discovered our ship and helped awaken us. They've chosen to align with us after learning the truth about their leaders. General Nakamura's expression hardened. The progenitors. Then you know, Mercer said. We've never forgotten, she replied. While the rest of the galaxy believes humans are extinct, we've been rebuilding, preparing. The 7 colony worlds that survived have formed the United Colonies. We maintain our secrecy and observe the Confederacy from a distance. General, Mercer said, leaning forward, the Dauntless carries the Terminus weapon. It was meant to disable the progenitor network. Nakamura's eyes widened. We thought it was lost forever. It's damaged but intact. With your resources and our knowledge, we might be able to complete its deployment. The general was silent for a moment, considering the implications. The Confederacy will be looking for you. They'll send everything they have once they realize what's at stake. Let them come, Mercer said. Humanity has hidden long enough. Agreed, Nakamura responded, a fierce smile spreading across her face. Prepare your ship for docking at Colony Station Alpha. We have much to discuss about humanity's return to the galactic stage. As the transmission ended, Mercer turned to face his crew and their alien allies. 600 years ago, we were on the brink of extinction. Today, we begin our resurgence. He looked at Lyrel, Zixel, and Kavosh. You 3 have a difficult path ahead. You'll be seen as traitors by your people, but know that you've helped uncover a truth that was buried for centuries. Lyrel stepped forward. Our people deserve to know the truth, Captain. The Confederacy was built on lies. Many will resist this knowledge, but others will listen. Then let's give them something worth hearing, Mercer said, turning back to the view screen where the blue-green planet grew larger. Area, open a channel to all United Colony frequencies. Channel open, Captain. Mercer stood tall, his voice clear and resolute. This is Captain James Mercer of the Earth Defense Ship Dauntless to all human colonies. Today marks the end of our hiding and the beginning of our return. The enemy that drove us to the brink believes us extinct. They've built their power on that belief. Together, we will show them, and the galaxy, that humanity not only survived, but thrived in the darkness. The Dauntless moved toward the waiting colony, its ancient hull reflecting the light of a new dawn for humanity. The message had been sent, the truth revealed, and somewhere in the vastness of space, the progenitors sensed the stirring of an enemy they thought long defeated. The game had changed. Humanity had returned.